pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you please read our mission statement?
Marshall Public Schools develops the potential of each learner for success in a changing world.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Public forum, now is time. If anybody's in the public like to approach the board, now is your time. Moving on to our presentations, we're all excited to have our 2018 budget presentation. Dr. Lamprick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that.
No fake news here?
No fake news. That is one of the breaking budget headlines that you're all going to be seeing throughout this couple-hour presentation. We'll try to cut it down a little bit. Okay.
Is that what you're saying? You're curious and
I
wonder where you're at.
Okay.
The abuse you take.
I'm done. Any questions? No. Golly. I would ask that you would open up and follow along on the budget presentation. That is item 13.2 on the agenda. We're not going to go through every page individually by any means, but I will refer to some pages along the way so that you can take a look at what I'm referring to. And you are certainly welcome to ask any questions that you might have, or if you wish, as the presentation goes along. As I've said in previous years, this is not just a budget, but really it is an annual report. It's still only at 112 pages. That's the same number as it was last year. So we worked to purge that, and Tricia had said, well, I think we only have like 97 pages, but it ended up being 112 pages. The school improvement plans are on pages 13 through 27. We're not going to be talking about those necessarily directly. And also chapters 10, which is assessment and test scores, chapter 11, achievement and integration, and chapter 12, schoolfinances.com. Those, again, we're not going to be talking too much about, so I would ask that you take a look at those at some other point in time. No special investigation needed, and the reason for that is that the legislative session is now complete. All the work has been done, and so we're not waiting for further results from the legislature like it seems like we've had to have in previous years. The only thing that's out there right now is that the legislature is suing the governor for, I'm not quite sure what he did. He didn't veto something, but he is...
Separation of powers.
Yes, okay, separation of powers. And I think there might be some impact if the governor wins out on this in regards to the whole teacher licensure. And I think that's where that problem came about. The governor said that the legislature stuck something in right at the very end, and apparently he didn't notice that or whatever, but did after the fact. So, but again, everything in this budget is as current and as up to date as possible. It's based on best information and a lot of assumptions, which I'll be talking about here in a few minutes. There is some good news out of St. Paul this time around. The Ag to School 40% credit, I think, is a huge thing that was passed for a second time, not pocket vetoed like it was last year. The special election dates, I think, is good legislation. They've set 5 days throughout the calendar year where elections can be held. And the reason I mention that is because it actually started out I think either in the House or the Senate where it was going to become very restrictive. In fact, I think it was the only date that was maybe available would be in the November general election, the typical second Tuesday of the month in November. And to come that far to set 5 days, which I think all the school districts are appreciative of, is good news, in fact. Another one of those items that started out where there was some concern that they might be rolling back some of the funding for the long-term facilities maintenance. That's over a 3-year period, where 16-17 was the first year of long-term facilities maintenance, and then we would have the 2 ensuing years with additional funding coming forward. And again, originally there was some question that the House and possibly the Senate might look at taking back some of that money. It got to be funded just the way it was set up with the 2015 legislative session. The foundation formula going from $6,067 to $6,188 for 17-18 and $6,312 for 18-19, 2% increase each of those years. That, in fact, is good news. Where, again, there was some talk of 1.25%, 1.25%, 1.5%, 1.5%, and it ended up being 2% and 2%. So good news about that. Additional funding and programming in the voluntary pre-K program. School Readiness Plus is what it's called, and provides another option. And there's been a lot of information coming out here over the past week or so from the Minnesota Department of Education to get your application in, and the school district is in fact looking at that. One thing that's a mixed blessing in my perception, and that is TRA. Originally, the legislature was going to tackle the TRA issue, and down the line also PERA, because there needs to be some changes made and some additional funding coming forward, and nothing happened in regards to TRA. And at one point, it looked like they were going to require school district, as the employer, to kick in more money. That didn't happen, and require employees to kick in more money. Again, that didn't happen. So in essence, I believe they've kicked the can down the road, and hopefully they'll deal with that in the next legislative session in 2018. School district is, in fact, planning for growth. We're looking at increasing enrollment projections. We're having continually increasing diverse population here in Marshall, increasing SPED populations. That really means ongoing support needed and administrative services needed to take care of all the students on an individual basis. The basic tenets of our budget for 17-18 are this: change. Change is always happening. Growth, and we're growing. And I'll add a third one, and that's conservative spending. We need to take a look at spending down the fund balance, not spending down the fund balance. And when we get our audit results for 16-17 in October or November, then we'll have a whole lot better idea of where we're at as far as our general fund balance. Our district market share remains constant. Pages 6 through 8, if you want to look at that, provide a variety of information pieces, including open enrollment trends, and the market share. We've consistently been, over the past number of years, 5-6 years, in the 77-78% range of all students, resident students, that we're capturing. 77 to 78% of those students coming to Marshall Public Schools. So I think that continues to be good news. What's the upside? What's the downside? Starting in September, we'll be in our 4th year of the one-to-one technology device rollout. And that's certainly a big upside, as all students have access to their own personal device, and they are being used. So that's really the upside. The downside is the impact that it's creating on our capital outlay budget, and ultimately it's going to be creating on our general fund budget. To support the purchases of that equipment and that infrastructure as we move forward, we're going to need to be replacing as we go, and that is a challenge for our capital outlay budget, and to a certain point it is becoming a challenge for our general fund budget as well. As I split that cost, because they're purchased on a lease purchase basis, so we have all these ongoing payments, and that starts adding up over the years, and so again being challenged on that. How are they being used in the classroom? Is there consistency from classroom to classroom, teacher to teacher? And are the students getting what they need to get out of that type of technology and instruction? I believe the staff needs more training so that they're all on board of how to deliver education with these devices. But the upside is that we are going to continue to be replacing the devices and being right on the forefront, and I think that's a good thing, but it doesn't come without its challenges. New guidelines to be set and approved. I just draw your attention to pages 10, 11, and 12, specifically pages 11 and 12, as we need to relook at our class size guidelines. One of the guidelines for elementary class sizes shows where we have smaller class sizes for grades 5 and 6 as a guideline as compared to grades 3 and 4. I'm not quite sure how that was done, but we not only need to look at those guidelines for elementary, K through 6, but for middle school, high school, and special education. So what will happen is that the administrative team will review this over the next few months and come forward with a recommendation to you as the school board. It's just something that needs to be relooked. Bill, I'm not sure how long ago those guidelines were established, but it's been quite a number of years.
Community.
Yes.
Smaller class sizes, the 22-to-1 and K through 2 was supported strongly.
Yeah, I understand it, but when do you think?
Golly.
Kathy Reiber was on the board.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
When we-
it just needs to be relooked. And what I referenced about 5th and 6th grade versus 3rd and 4th grade, that's something that doesn't seem to make
I'm going to
sense.
hold my ground on 22-to-1 and K through 2.
All right,
It's a huge need.
and I'm not,
Well, and-
Bill, I'm
and we
not
all know
suggesting
sitting here,
that as well.
The demographics has changed dramatically. in
Yeah.
terms- And you know that from your own wife teaching first grade.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got 45% of your class that's ESL or special ed or Title I. And that's huge when you're trying to give kids the basics.
Do you feel like that proposal from the administrators will come prior to the school year starting, or?
No,
Timeline.
I would sometime once the school gets going, so. Projected enrollment to be at near record level. Again, pages 9 and 10, take a look there, where you'll see the history of our enrollment over quite a number of years, and our projected enrollment for 17-18, and what we're finishing off with 16-17. 36 additional students are being projected, ADMs, for 17-18 as compared to 16-17. And as we develop the budget, the whole enrollment projection is the biggest assumption that we make. Sometimes we can be very pleasantly surprised about what actually happens when the kids get in the seats in September. Sometimes it maybe isn't such a good surprise. And considering the small decline that we had from January through May of this year, at the end of the 16-17 fiscal year or school year, we need to take a look and see if that is an aberration, or are we going to continue with the trend that we had been on for a number of years, 5-6 years previously. Some enhancements made, and if you recall that we brought forward to you some additions to our staffing, a kindergarten special ed teacher because of the needs that we saw there, special ed support services through the service cooperative, the addition of girls soccer, just a number of odds and ends of things that we brought forward, not like other years where we had, especially like last year for 16-17, where we had a significant change or addition as far as programming goes and staffing goes. And I think one of the good news is that we're continuing to with those additions that took place in 16-17, moving those forward 17-18. We have not done any reduction. And also keep in mind that any time we talk about enhancements, it's really about staffing, salaries and benefits. 80+%, as much as 83% of our general fund budget is salary and benefits. When it's all said and done, the general fund balance is projected to decrease. And just as a reminder, when we do spend down our fund balance, those reserves are one-time only money that can be spent. The result of our budget projection for 17-18 is that the fund balance, general fund balance, will have a deficit of a little less than $200,000, and we take into consideration the transfer of money coming in from the transportation fund, which we've had over the past number of years an increase in the transportation fund balance. We're looking at a $140,000 deficit when it's all said and done. So, and that's varied as I've reported to you over the past, well, actually probably since starting in February. It's varied a little bit back and forth, but where we're ending up with this preliminary budget is a little less than $200,000 deficit in the general fund, and then again with that adjustment coming through the transportation fund, about $140,000. You can take a look at that on page 73. We still, definitely need to be cautious and diligent. And then I would ask you to look on page 74 of the budget book, where it gives a little bit of a history of both actual and projected fund balances. In the 13-14, at the end of the 13-14 fiscal year, we ended up with a 17.1% fund balance. And keep in mind, how you determine fund balance is the dollars left divided by expenditures. That gets you the percent. In 14-15, that fund balance was 17.62%. 15-16, 18.99%. And 16-17, we're projecting to end at 16.73%. And for 17-18, at 15.35%. And then also on page 75, the bar chart, the yellow bar chart, will show the excess or deficits over the years in regards to the general fund, actual and projected, obviously projected for 16-17 and 17-18. Any question on that?
Just, the board built up that fund from a little over 8% up to the 17%. And the board chose to spend it back down.
Yes.
So I think the board just needs to decide where they want to cap it out at. If you want to be at 8% again or 12% again. But it's been a choice that we had the funds to spend it down.
Yeah, we've been in the fortunate position to be able to do that. You're absolutely correct. And I think as we look at the budget for 18-19, I know we don't want to look at that at this point in time, but that certainly needs to be some of the discussion. And as I referred to earlier with the audit results for 16-17, I think we'll have a whole lot better idea of how that budget came in and what our options may or may not be. So after the middle of November, I think we can begin that discussion as far as fund balance. A good thing continues to grow, and that is something I talked about earlier, long-term facilities maintenance. We're still kind of in the experimental phase here in our district, and I think most school districts in Minnesota are, as to how you spend that money, how you budget for it. As I had said earlier, those dollars are going to continue to increase from 16-17 to 17-18 dollars available, and then from 17-18 to 18-19. By the time we get to the 18-19 budget, we should be receiving a little more than $1 million per year in long-term facilities maintenance funding. So it really is a good thing, and it can be used for, mainly for deferred maintenance. The old health and safety program, that's been rolled into long-term facilities maintenance. We cannot buy any new equipment with long-term facilities maintenance, so that kind of skews things in regards to our capital outlay fund, because long-term facilities maintenance is part of, or at least we've put it in the capital outlay fund, but roofs, parking lots, sidewalks, floors, plumbing, all of that is part of long-term facilities maintenance, and it is. What was that?
Boilers, air conditioning.
Well, yes. And on an annualized basis, we need to bring forward to the Minnesota Department of Education a 10-year plan approved by you as a school board. So in July, we'll bring that forward. Capital outlay fund balance is challenged. Pages 76 through 84 is where you can refer to all of the information in regards to the capital outlay fund. Gives the complete story of that fund and related operation and maintenance funds as well. For 17-18, we're looking at deficit spending of $370,000, $372,000, and that would bring below our fund balance goal for capital outlay, which is $400,000. We would fall below that if, in fact, that would be realized. There's $300,000+ now for that one-to-one tech initiative. That's the capital outlay fund share, and it's the same for the general fund. So all total, we're looking at about $600,000 for 17-18 to be paying off those lease purchase agreements. There's almost $150,000 right now in other lease purchases. One is for the roof. If you remember the middle school roofing project, we did that by a lease purchase arrangement. And we also have an arrangement with the city for the irrigation program and the fencing project out at the high school, out at the new softball complex. So $150,000 is tied up there with lease purchase agreements. And so that really doesn't leave us with any discretionary money to do anything. So this is a huge challenge for us, and we really need to work on a plan for the future. And as I'd mentioned earlier, it is, and it does affect the general fund as well. Maytech, serving and graduating more students. Pages 42 through 47 tells the story of what's happening in Maytech. We have 63 students overall, and there's a lot of transition. Those are full-time equivalents budgeted for 17-18. We had, I believe, 15 students that graduated in May, and that was a record class, and that's just a wonderful thing that's happening. Really a lot of our tech ed programs are here, welding, the CNA program. And one thing else that I wanted to report is that we are making progress on the daycare deficit that we had. We're not out of the woods totally yet, but hoping that 17-18 we can finally get to a break-even point, which would be a good thing. So solvency is a goal for 17-18 for the daycare program, and of course that's part of the whole Maytech budget. So again, take a look at pages 42 through 47, in regards to Maytech. Information overload. Do you feel like you have information overload already? We're on slide 14 of 23, so we're moving right along. There is a lot of information. We have both, current budget information in a lot of different areas in regards to our budget for 17-18, and a lot of historical information. So the individual building site information, pages 27 through 42, provides a lot of information, revenue, actual and projected over the years, actual and projected expenditure, and then the correlation between whether those building sites are solvent, and they all are. Keep in mind that there is one other site, and that's really, in essence, district-wide, and we don't get any revenue, but we have a lot of expenditures that come forward for district-wide expenses. And so that one chart that I show, I don't know which page it's on, specifically, it's kind of the John Deere chart where it's yellow and green. All of the building sites show more revenue than expenditure, but there is the district-wide expenses that don't have any revenue to support it. That's the one there. Thank you, Tricia. And so
I'm looking at the special needs.
we'll get to,
Come to that.
yeah, absolutely. So really, the information's all good stuff, and it's good leisure reading for you folks, especially if you are having a hard time getting to sleep. Probably the budget book would be a good thing to keep by your bedside. An active department at Marshall Public Schools, and that is our activities program. Just finish off a very successful year. My goodness, a lot of the spring sports, all the sports have done very well, and fine arts, just a whole lot of participation. Pages 53 through 59 is where you'll find that information in regards to the activities program. Participation figures for this past year of 16-17, we had 300 kids for middle school athletics, 793 kids for high school athletics, and these are duplicated counts, so some of the kids show up one or two or three or four times in these numbers. And there was a nice article in the Independent here about a week or so ago about three of the boys that participate in 3 state tournaments. Wow, what a achievement, what a feat. That's great news. So 827 students participating in fine arts, 130 in the intramural program. That's still going pretty strong. And now we're adding a new girls soccer program. That will be junior varsity this next year, and then moving to both junior varsity and varsity in the following year. 3.64% is the expenditure cost of the activities program as compared to the total budget. So 3.64% of the general fund budget is in activities. And of that dollar amount for expenditures for activities, a little more than 26% of that is supported by revenue that comes in, whether it's admissions or fees or whatever, various different support mechanisms. Dollars to buy equipment. What do you think that is? It's our food service program. We've had a successful program, food service program, working with Taher Incorporated over these many years, and it has given us money that we are able to use to purchase equipment that's needed. In fact, this current year of 16-17, we bought a steamer for the high school that already needed to be replaced. We bought a dishwasher for Parkside, and now coming up in this next year is a steamer at Parkside and a dishwasher at Westside. And we're able to purchase that equipment rather than out of the capital outlay fund in the food service fund because we have a substantial balance. So that's a good thing. A couple other things in regards to the food service program besides buying equipment is the Second Chance Breakfast. That has been extremely successful, and it's just been amazing the number of students that we've had being involved in that on a day-to-day basis. There will be no price increase for 17-18. Typically, over the years when the budget is presented, you also approve a price increase for food service for the meals, and that is not going to happen. Our process that we use for past due accounts, trying to collect those and keep them current, I think has been an amazing success here at Marshall Public Schools, so that's a very good thing, and we need to continue that. We need to be vigilant so it doesn't kind of fall by the wayside, because sometimes those things, well, you kind of take it for granted, and if no one is monitoring it, then it can become an issue. And then the other thing that has happened in regards to the food service program was the recommendation and approval by you on June 5th to retain Taher Incorporated as our food service management company.
Do you recall what the negative balance is right now?
I don't know. The last I had heard, I think, was like 8,000, but I haven't gotten a number recently.
A lot better than when we started looking at it.
Well, yeah, when we had that, I think it was like 29,000, something of that nature. Marshall community well served. There's certainly lots of programs through our joint powers agreement with the City of Marshall, including early childhood family education, school readiness, the community ed programs, driver's training, adult basic ed, after-school programming. There has been support for the parent, one of the parent-student connectors. We also have the scheduling program now, Our Schools Today, which is being used by the school district, the city, and I believe the CVB has access to it. So there's a lot of good things happening. I mean, we do utilize the Red Baron Arena. That's another venue through, again, our joint powers agreement, and really partnerships is what it's all about. And specifically in this area, we're very strong and very well connected. Too special. This will address your question, Bill, or what you were going to talk about as far as the special ed program. We've been over the years, in essence, a regional center for special ed services because we do provide a great palette of special needs services. And on pages 47 through 55, that tells the story of our special education program. I would ask you to refer to the lower right-hand corner on page 52. And maybe, Bill, that's what you were looking at possibly. $1,928,000 is our cross-subsidy number. You've heard that cross-subsidy before. Special education is part of the general fund, but what we need to do, and every school district is faced with that, is to get into other areas of the special or of the general fund to help pay for the costs of the special ed program. Because we've never been funded either at a state level or a federal level to be able to pay for all the expenses of ever-increasing special education programming.
The 94th Congress almost 80% funding. 94th Congress was in the mid-70s. And we're at, what, 30% funding from the feds?
Yeah. 40% at the max, but one of the things that we made a change on back, I think, 3 years ago, and that was the reimbursement that we receive for special education transportation. That always moved into the general fund totally, and it really didn't make a lot of sense to us that this really was transportation, and should that be Fund 3? And so we have had that reimbursement coming into to Fund 3, which technically, the way the state views the different funds, transportation and capital outlay really are part of the general fund. So when it's all said and done, it's just really one fund, but nonetheless, we separate them out, and we'll continue to separate those out. And so there's like $460,000 in special education transportation reimbursement that is going to the transportation fund rather than sticking in the general fund. So if you want to look at that $1.9 million and subtract 460, that could give you, I mean, obviously it gives you a different number, but that's not how we're doing business at this point in time. So again, the cross-subsidy is a significant challenge for the district and all school districts, I think probably nationwide. Still in the black, and that is the transportation fund. As I just talked about, the special ed reimbursement is a significant factor for it being in the black. For those of you that have been on the board for quite a few years, you'll remember that we were always transferring money at the end of the year with the audit process from the general fund to the transportation fund. And now that is flip-flopped, and the transportation fund, to a certain point, is giving some money back to the general fund, which is a good thing. One of the things that has happened over the past years with our changing demographics is that we have more kids riding the bus, and specifically high school kids riding the bus as compared to what it used to be. We have a target fund balance of $100,000 for the transportation fund, and we're projecting a fund balance for 17-18, end of 17-18 year, of $552,000.
What page is that in the budget book?
That would be on that one page that summarizes, and we'll get to that in just a minute as to what the ending fund balances are. All right. Just the facts. Oh, it's on page 85. Okay, thank you, Tricia. Our total expenditure budget for 17-18 is projected at $38,735,000. Of that, $28,415,000 is the general fund budget. We have an overall 4.3% increase for 17-18 over 16-17. That's all funds included. As I'd mentioned before, we're looking at a preliminary deficit of $200,000 or a little less than $200,000 in the general fund, factoring in the transportation gift, $140,000 deficit instead. And again, page 85 is what you eventually, here maybe in a few minutes, will approve as far as the 17-18 budget. Again, there's lots of facts throughout this whole document, and certainly more facts and figures and verbiage on in chapters 10 through 12, which I had mentioned in regards to achievement and integration, and the whole chapter 10 that Amanda Grinauger puts together, and then the schoolfinances.com. The 73% factor can be found on a graph or a chart, pages 86 through 89. There's lots of charts and graphs, and for those of you that don't like numbers, percents maybe are a little bit easier to read. 73% of the expenditures in the general fund of the total expenditures. And for the revenue side, it's one more percent, it's 74% of the revenue that's received by the district or is projected to be received is in fact in the general fund. On pages 89 through 91 is the schoolfinances.com 6-year financial projection. And as I've said probably in previous years, it's difficult enough probably looking at projecting what's going to happen in next year, let alone looking down the line 5 or 6 years. But it's good information to take a look at. And on the bar charts that are there, the blue columns are the general fund, and the red columns are funds 1, 3, and 5 combined, just for your information. Question that might come up, are we assuming too much? Well, all the assumptions can be found on pages 60 through 63, and as I'd mentioned before, enrollment projection is the big one out of there. And just keep in mind, this is a preliminary budget, and so it's subject to a lot of change. A lot of things will happen, and we'll have different numbers when we do the revised budget in October. So, yeah, it's based on a lot of good information, but some of the information certainly will change over the summertime and once we get to the start of the school year. Dr. Feelgood, Motley Crue, we're moving forward now with our music quote, change. Now it's time for change. Nothing stays the same. Now it's time. And just as a reminder to you, the 3 tenets for our 17-18 budget are change, growth, and conservative spending, conservative fiscal management. We have changing student needs, diversity. Our free and reduced population is at like 44%. A lot of things have happened. Change has happened in the past and is happening right as we speak. Truly nothing or very little stays the same. So when we get to the motion to approve the budget, I would ask that you do so, and I very much thank you for listening this evening, and if you have any questions, I would entertain trying to answer any of those questions. If not, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. Thank you.
Trish, I need your help here. Thank you, Bruce. Our next item is our consent agenda. A motion to approve. Do we have a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Financials.
The bills for the period May-June of this year by fund category are as follows. General fund, $1,541,174.67. The food service fund, $144,891.12. Transportation fund, $192,641.67. Community services fund, $178,672.43. Capital outlay fund, $23,076.17. Construction fund, $4,286.65. The debt service fund, $229,073.75. And finally, the student entrepreneurial fund, $128.18. That makes a grand total of $2,313,944.64, and I would ask your approval of the bills claims for the period May-June.
Thank you. And I'll second. Any further discussion?
Thanks for providing that information, that spreadsheet.
You're welcome.
Please vote. Anything else you need to add?
No, I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Board forum, does anybody like to bring up anything? I know we started negotiations.
Yeah, just an update on negotiations. We had our first meeting with NEA and off to a really good start. We got a few people on vacations here, so we'll get back to meeting again shortly after 4th of July.
I would mention that Jeff presented for Sunrise Rotary on Thursday and did a really nice job just kind of giving a school update. Some good questions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were there, Bruce.
Yeah.
Who's serving on the teachers' negotiating team this year?
On the teacher's behalf or on the board's behalf?
Teachers' behalf.
Wayne Ivers, Kathy Kraus, Kelly Knitzko,
Bob Jacobson.
Bob Jacobson, Dan Smith,
Gene Mather.
Mather,
That's it.
Kerry Meyer.
Meyer.
Yeah.
Good deal. Anybody else have anything? Moving on to administrator's report. I'll touch a few little things that I read, found interesting. I saw that MSBA summer session's coming up August 7th. If anybody wants to go to that, let Trish know ASAP.
Actually, Willis Sweeney, who's presenting, has been here twice, and she presented to our teachers last August. If you can go and you haven't heard her yet, go. She's unbelievable. She really does a nice job.
Just a one-day thing.
One day, yep. Early childhood report, summer classes have started. They have 15 families they're working with. Parkside met the reading and math goals that they had set this year. Westside met the challenge of reading 10,000 books, and Jumpstart program has started. The middle school was recognized again by the Minnesota Department of Education for a great PBIS program. High school met 94% of their school improvement plan, and they're still short 2 teachers they're still working on. Maine Tech, they're reviewing what worked this year. They had a total of 21 graduates this year. Summer school started with 154 students. And then if you want to see the success of the activities department, there's a whole page of successful information. Any questions on that? I went through a little faster than what he does, didn't I? So I didn't want to shortchange anybody. There's a lot of good things happening. So.
Yeah, a lot of year-end kind of reports in the news.
Very, very good reading. And I'm almost there, folks. First reading of policies 416 through 419. This is our first reading. Any questions on any of the policies? Move on to our action items. We have action item approval of our Q-Comp annual report. Motion to approve. Do we need to have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Action item on approval of Dr. Lamprecht's 2018 budget. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, very good. And please vote. It is approved. Board action on the 2017-18 literacy plan. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
And this we have to do every year.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote, please.
32 pages.
It is approved. Anything else, folks? Very good, adjourned. Thank you.